All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Highruler, and today's video is going to be talking about this Jason Schreier article that just dropped. Now, this article is interesting for numerous different reasons, and I think there's an interesting approach to talk about it. Of course, when it comes to the greater gaming landscape, Embracer has had their hands in a lot of different studios and a lot of different publishers, and there has been some consolidation thanks to them. Now, with that being said, it seems like after their Saudi deal went through, they were very much so in the cost-cutting department, and they were just basically laying off a bunch of people, canceling a bunch of projects, and it just seemed like there was a lot of doom and gloom over their influence, including Greg Miller making a joke at their expense when their CEO was in the audience of a recent awards show.
There are two phrases everyone in this room, everyone in video games never wants to hear. And number one is people online are mad, and number two is the Embracer Group is here. They've really fucked this place up, haven't they? It's fucking crazy.
With that being said, it seems like today's news is a sign of good times with Embracer now selling Saber to private investors. Now, of course, when it comes to private investors, we're not going to have any sort of information here about kind of who they are or what they do, but I'd like to think that anybody could be better than Embracer Group at this point. And hopefully this means some more financial flexibility for Saber, and they're able to kind of produce the games that they like. I usually like Saber's games. For example, they develop things like World War Z, and they do a lot of work on different products and different projects, and I think what they do is genuinely good work for the AA to the lower end of the AAA space. Now, today's news isn't just important to talk about with regards to the industry and Embracer Group and what's happening with them, but of course, we have to talk about Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. This game has gone through such an interesting decline and uphill battle because when this game was announced, it was announced at a PlayStation event and people went nuts for that trailer. This game is a cult classic for so many people. So many people love the Knights of the Old Republic as well as Knights of the Old Republic 2. Now, since that event, that PlayStation event where the trailer debuted, it has been an interesting decline once again for what has happened. For those who don't know, they were with Asper Media. Now, Asper Media does a lot of work when it comes to remakes and remasters, specifically for Star Wars. They're in charge of the Battlefront collection that is coming out next month in March. Now, when they originally had the deal and they were making the game, they actually developed an internal slice to show their stakeholders their progress on the project. Now, when they showed that internal slice, the people in charge were not happy with what they saw, and they were very much so not happy with the progress that has been made. They actually took them off the project and put Saber on. Now, many people would view that as a good thing, right? Saber genuinely makes kind of new or interesting games, and Asper Media genuinely does remakes or remasters, but of course, they are mostly in the remastered territory. So it seems like they were actually stepping up by putting this project on Saber. Now, the interesting thing there is that since Saber had that project, there hasn't been a lot of updates about it, and even more so speculation that the project was abandoned and there may only been like 2 people working on it, and that put a lot of people into kind of this red alert thinking that this game was never going to come out and it was never going to happen, and they had lost their only chance in the Knights of the Old Republic remake. Now, today's news actually kind of says that's not happening, that the game is still coming out. Now, in Jason Schreier's article, the second paragraph here says, Saber will become a privately owned company with around 3,500 employees, said the person who asked not to be identified discussing non-public information. The company plans to continue developing a remake of Star Wars The Knights of the Old Republic, the highly anticipated game that was removed from its previous developer Asper Media in 2022. Now, honestly, this is a great thing. I think when it comes to the overall industry and seeing groups leave Embracer Group, I think that's a great thing to have these studios and publishers stand on their own 2 legs again. And I think for fans of Star Wars who are looking towards this as being their next big thing, I think this is great news for them too. We've recently talked a lot about licensed games and where they stand nowadays, and it obviously looks very dull and not that great considering EA's recent comments, but obviously for a lot of people, they're hoping that things will change, the winds will blow a different direction, and that licensed games, including Star Wars, Marvel, and the rest of it, will be hot commodities again. Now, I just recently talked about the ballooning budgets of AAA games, and I'd be interested to see what's going to happen with Knights of the Old Republic, because obviously remaking a game and making it into what people expect out of a AAA game in the year 2024 means that there is quite a bit of cost associated with that. So it's all interesting, and of course, with being private investors, you never really know how it's going to go. Usually, a lot of the time, we don't really find out a lot of the information because they don't really have to talk about it versus being a publicly traded company. So lots of moves being made here, including the overall industry shift, as well as fans for licensed games. And it seems like, at least for now, the Knights of the Old Republic remake is coming. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And otherwise, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. And as always, guys, make sure you enjoy the rest of your day and the night. You take care of yourselves. Later, guys.